Even this is tough for me. I'm an in-the-room guy. I walk in the room. Joe Namath, I would ask him about football, and he's answered those questions a million times. And as soon as he started talking about the Super Bowl, I said, Joe, hang on. That's nice. We'll talk about that later. I want to talk to you about the sitcom you did in 1976 called The Waverly Wonders. And his eyes lit up. He's like, oh man, nobody ever asked me about that. Oh, I was doing an out-of-town show with Ann Margaret called Little Abner when Hollywood called. And he just got so excited talking about that. So I love the in-person interviews. So I would, they were paying me to do the podcast, but I would go out to LA on my own dime and in a week do 10 interviews.
Now, how are you recording them? Was it through a laptop or something? How were you recording
I had an old white chunky brick of a MacBook from, this is 2010. And when I started, I didn't even have a mixer. I had one of those snowball microphones.
Oh, wow.
And I would put it between us, and I'd say, this is it. Let's, sometimes we would sit side by side like we were in the back of a taxi and talk that way. I did one with Steve Guttenberg in Central Park sitting on a bench with me holding it between us.
Oh, my God.
But I still think that way. Like, the interview is better to go for the perfect sound quality. I'd rather have a good chat. Like, I'll listen to live podcasts and go, oh, you can hear coughing in the audience and the mics are off. But if it's funny, I don't care. So that was the mentality I went in. I'd rather be in person with the guy, and it always worked out great. I would go to Vegas to interview UFC guys. I would go into Manhattan to interview anybody I could. It was great.
What were you recording on? Was it GarageBand too, also?
I was right into GarageBand. It could not have been more low tech. And you know what? It's 10 years later. I still do I've been weekly podcasting for 10 years, and I've never left GarageBand. Now I have some nice microphones. I've got an audio mixer, but it's just still not that high tech. We're talking right now. You can see my microphone is stuck in a box wrapped in foam, so you don't get too much feedback.
I see him look, and obviously we can't see him, but you've got something in front of you. It's like a black paper clip and some kind of, what is that?
The black paper clip is holding up the $4 moving blanket that is wrapped inside this box to protect the microphone from all the echo in this office of mine.
Great. I might need that one for mine.
Oh, yeah. Because, you're in a room just like me. You're going to get a lot of echo off all the sheetrock and everything.
But it's the conversation that's important,
absolutely,
folks.
Absolutely. And, I don't always have this. When Chris Roach, who's been on your show, we have our own podcast, Long Island Explained. Before this whole pandemic, we would just sit downstairs in my dining room. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't studio setting, but it worked. It was all about the banter and the conversation.
Well, that's where you recorded it, in your dining room? All the episodes?
Record everything in my dining room.
Oh my God.
And then I have to edit out my dog having to go out, 5 different times during a chat and the phone ringing. And sometimes you can hear my kids walking in from school. But that's how we always bang them out right in my living room.
So speaking about that, Long Island Explained, what was the genesis of that?
I do development with a casting director from New York. And he was working on Kevin Can Wait, which was the CBS show with Kevin James, where Chris Roach was discovered and cast in that show. And it lasted 2 seasons, and it was kind of canceled abruptly. And he had written a script that this guy had gotten his hands on. So I was doing coverage on a lot of scripts, and he wrote one that I really liked. And he's like, actually, you know what? You and Roach would get along. So he just set up a lunch meeting. And they were talking about different stuff. And Roach was doing a hockey podcast at the time out of Governors. And I don't know, we kept meeting. We said, we should try and do something. And he said, you want to come on the hockey podcast? I'm like, no, I think let's try something different. And at the time, and I still am a big fan of, I don't know if you know the show with Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast. Gil and I worked together at Sideshow Network when I did another podcast. But the format of their show was his co-host Frank Santopadre does all the research, gets the guests, they come in, and Gil just makes quips. He knows the history, he knows a lot about old-time Hollywood, but he does zero prep work. And we were sitting there over pancakes at a diner, and I said, Roach, let's do this. I'll do all the research, we'll just do Long Island topics, you're a Long Island guy, You have a big following here. We'll talk only about Long Island. I'll do pages of research, and I'll present them to you, and our banter will be the show. And that's what we've done. And it's worked out pretty well, except I do all the work.
You definitely do a lot of research.
But you know what? And I enjoy it. So I keep going down these rabbit holes, and I find all sorts of crazy stuff out there in the world. But it's pretty good. I mean, we have a nice sponsor. We have a nice Long Island audience. It's something to do.
How do you get guests? Is it just starting like with people you know?
Well, like most of our shows are a topic. You know, the Amityville Horror, or
the Lady of the Lake.
The lady, yeah, he loves the supernatural ones, which I don't like, but we cover all the supernatural stuff on Long Island.
And I love the one with the three foods.
Oh, the Long Island food, yeah, bacon, egg, and cheese. You got your bagel, you got your pizza's big.
That was awesome.
Yeah, you can really tell he lights up when he knows the topic. Long Island clubs, you know, he was such a club kid. That was one where he really drove the bus. But we've had, we had Jim Brewer on. Our best get was Katie Beers, who was a young woman who made headlines when she was abducted at 9 years old and kept in a bunker. And I read, we were going to do that story. I said, geez, it's kind of dark, because it was a big news story on Long Island, but it's a creepy story about a child molester who abducts this young girl. And then I read a book about it, and I said, well, it works if we can talk to her now. So I just reached out. So we did a whole episode about the crime and her being abducted. And then the next week I was on the phone with her from her home, as a grown-up woman, talking about the experience. And she couldn't have been more pleasant. She was so delightful. But that made it okay to talk about. And then some of the guests now, we just get comedians because we're in a pandemic and we don't know what the hell to talk about. So it's usually people we know.
Do you usually record a few episodes in advance?
We used to. We'd bank 3. He'd come to the house, we'd order a pizza, we'd make coffee, we'd go bang, 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 and do 3 episodes in one day. But now we're still doing everything over Zoom and over the internet, so we usually just go week to week.
Yeah, I was told you got to do at least, well, when you're starting out, have at least 3 or 4 in your pocket, just so.
Oh yeah,
if you're going to go weekly, I guess, right?
And I've been doing this for 10 years for Men's Health, and then my own show with Sideshow Network out in LA, I did for 2.5 years. And then this one, I'm so adamant about there has to be a new episode every Tuesday. Once you miss keeping a regular schedule, it's easy for everything to get away from you. So I've been pumping out weekly episodes since 2010, every Tuesday morning.
Dedication.
Occasionally we run a rerun just when I have stuff to do and we can't get together.
Have enough in your pocket, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
We're almost done. I just want to know about your writing process. Now, do you approach everything the same way? I want to say, are you writing mostly comedy stuff, stand-up stuff, or are you still dabbling in screenplays, first of all?
When this whole thing started, the pandemic, I've never been busier. Because I didn't have to go into Manhattan anymore. I'd go into Manhattan for an audition. That's an afternoon. Which, of course I want to go in for that spot on Law and Order or The Blacklist. But it was very time consuming for the minor roles I was going in for. But you keep plugging away, especially commercials. Commercials is like a 40-second audition. And I'm like, I just wasted a whole afternoon on a train to go in and tell them I like soap or whatever the hell it was. But when the pandemic started, I have a sitcom, an original sitcom that I wrote that I couldn't really get anywhere. I wasn't sure what to do with it, that we started developing even more. And Roach has a project that he wrote that I was helping him with that we started developing. So those first few months, man, we were working on the scripts. We started doing table reads over Zoom. And not just me and my friends, we were getting Broadway actors to come in. We had big-name TV guys doing our table reads. We got these things honed, down perfect. And we were like, oh, man, when this all goes away in June, we are going to be ready to take the world by storm. And it's still not happening. Those scripts are still ready to go, but there's nothing moving right now. So those are sitcom scripts. You asked about the process. I kind of bounce back and forth. I haven't written a feature in at least a year, but I started writing. There's a true crime story here on Long Island that I've been doing as a book deal. So I started plotting it out as a book because it became such a big story. So that's kind of a different animal because it's a real life story. It takes place in the past. It involves a lot of research. So that was very focused. But I can't work on one thing at a time because it makes me crazy because I need to have a lot of balls in the air. I also started a second one-man show just because there's no comedy anymore. You can't do live stand-up. So I was trying to figure out a way. I have some other stuff I've been writing and just filing away. So I think I'm going to do a new one-man show at some point. So I write that, and that's just a comedy thing where I can take an hour and just type kind of stream of consciousness thing, trying to make that happen. That's a totally different thing because it's whatever comes to my head. So my writing process is kind of all over the map, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you keep books or something handy for like an idea? Like, if I got an idea for a story, you speak it into a phone or you have something to write with just in case you're out in the world?
I'm the king of like one-line emails to myself. Like when Roach got me back in the stand-up. So last year we were doing a ton of stand-up. I was opening for him on the road. So I would just open up my email, subject, comedy, and I would put in a line. I could put in a whole bit. I could type in 3 words. And, I would look at it 2 days later and go, oh, my God, what the hell does waffle iron mean? Why was that funny 2 days ago? I can't remember. But I save everything because eventually things come back. But I do. I keep, in my drawer here, I've got comedy bits. I've got stuff from the past that I'll go back and look at. The book, The Artist's Way, which I'm sure you're familiar with, the daily writing. That's something I like to try and do. Sit down and just 20 minutes, just write about whatever, because things will come from that. And that's another thing I used to do with Roach. We used to have the chain. When we were both doing stand-up together, we would have to write 30 minutes a day. And we would keep each other honest. We'd just text each other, the emoji of the pencil, saying, oh, I got my 30 minutes in. I would do mine like at 6 in the morning. He would do his at 11:30 at night. But we kept each other honest for months that we would keep writing regardless of what was going on in the world.
Did it have to make sense, what you were writing? Or did it...
No, and a lot of it was gibberish because if there's nothing going on, I'm like, oh, crap, I got nothing to write about. I can't think of anything. I'm going to have a bowl of cereal. I wonder where cereal comes from. Oh, I would think it started in Battle Creek, Michigan. And, the creative minds that we have just take off. And, a lot of it is garbage. We never showed it to each other. It was just a way of keeping ourselves honest. And I would go back every once in a while and go, oh, that's kind of funny. Let me see if I can expand on that. And you get different ideas.
What makes good comedy, in your opinion?
I have no idea, dude. It's probably honesty. When I'm up there, I always talk about my kids or my married life or my in-laws or I can't do like jokes. Somebody says, oh, you're a comedian? Tell me a joke. I'm like, I don't have a joke. I can tell you about my trip to the proctologist last week. That was a hoot. I can give you 10 minutes on that, but I can't do, why did the chicken cross I can't do jokes. And there are guys who can, and God bless them, but that's just not me.
Well, what makes you laugh?
Anything that surprises me, which is kind of, I don't know, that's cheesy, but there are some sitcoms I'll watch and I'm like, oh, all right. Obviously, this is going to happen next. And my wife is like, how do you know that? I'm like, because this is going to happen, and then somebody else is going to come in. And like, it's just, a little formulaic. But there are shows like Barry on HBO with Bill Hader and Henry Winkler that are just always amaze me. It's always different. It's different turns, and it's just fascinating. And that's funny and surprising and makes me laugh. But it's the same like Breaking Bad was always surprising, and it was just fantastic entertainment. So anything that surprises me makes me happy. Except clowns, which are just freaky to everybody.
Stay away from Pennywise.
Oh, I can't even. No, I'm out.
Can't watch those movies, huh?
Oh, I don't even like the commercials, dude. I did something where I needed to cut a piece of Pennywise, whatever the stupid clown's name is, and I couldn't stand just even watching it on my little video monitor as I was trying to edit the clip in. Which is why